So the reading this week was kind of very in depth, I guess you could say. This is my video log 8. I am still kind of trying to feed on what I read not too long ago. Throughout the day, I've been reading off and on, and I kind of got some of the points, but then again, I didn't understand a little bit of it too, because it seemed like it was very complex, even though even in the um, readings it was talking about simplifying things and not having as complex of relative relativistic thinking. Um, so when our prompt was going through, it kind of brought up a couple of different situations. Um, I know that she was talking about the periodical. Um, it says once you get to 21 or 22, you can no longer control yourself if you have yet to start controlling yourself. Um, and I think that maybe that is kind of true to some extent um, in everyday life, because if you're not seeing that sense of maturity yet, it's kind of, I don't know, um, kind of one of those things where if you haven't picked it up yet, you're not going to pick it up because you haven't learned from your mistakes or haven't learned from um, what you corrected in the past. If you put it towards the talk of faith, I know it was asked, what is my definition of faith and how to tie it into the reading. Um, when I was in the Tuesday class, I know none of y'all got to hear it, but um, my definition of faith was when you take, sorry, believing in something that you may not be able to see, but you may be able to feel. This is kind of how I've always thought of faith. I grew up in the church, and I know it was a little bit different. Um, I also think taking the step out and finding yourself and your faith is very important. I think that's kind of where it was talking about controlling yourself, having that courage to step out and say, "Hey, this is what I believe in, and this is where I'm gonna focus my life. I'm gonna go and try to do this." And they do have that in a lot of churches or in a lot of religions where it's called the affirmation of faith, and that's actually coming out and affirming that you believe in this. And even though you can't see that at the time, you still get this sense of a higher being, of it being realistic. Um, I did say when you take the step when you take the step out, you don't know what could happen, but you trust yourself enough to step out and see. Um, this is that maturity portion. When you mature in that sense, I definitely think that you start to take that step out and you start to control yourself, just like it was saying in the book. Um, you start to control yourself and you start to get a more of an authority on yourself. Um, I think that's a part of growing up and a part of being mature. Who knows when that's going to happen? You could be 15 years old or you could be 21, 22, just like it said. Um, you went back to the um, leaving that of obedience to the student. Um, I found that in the reading, and when I heard it talking about leaving the obedience to the student, I really felt like it was saying that you gotta let them learn on their own kind of thing. That's what I kind of pulled from that, is you gotta let them learn on their own. I put in here a student. Um, reacts to discovery of relativistic thinking with profound anxiety. I found that in the book right underneath that portion that you were talking about, and I really feel like this is true because um, I know in education, you know, we it's one of those things. I kind of think of it as always go with your first answer. Um, you may want to talk yourself out of that because it's the most relativistic answer or realistic answer. Um, but you may start to think off and start to say, well, hey, this may be too simple, or hey, maybe I'm not thinking clearly. Um, so it does come with a sense of anxiety, and you don't really know how to react to that. Um, that's kind of how I've felt in my transitioning into college. I know I had a hard time with that when I was coming up and through, is relativistic thinking, because I wasn't always I wasn't always the best test taker or the best student in school, because I always, tried to think too complex, and I didn't break it down simplicity wise. Um, I know that things can be broken down easier, but that comes along with the maturity of a student and actually believing his authoritative figures to tell him, hey, you can do it. You just got to figure out on your own how to do it. Um, I know we can guide you, but we can't tell you. Um, we can't. We can show you, but we can't be there and hold your hand and actually do it for you. And I think that's basically how page 11 broke down in the book with position 5. Um, it was really huge to see the transition of that position um, from 4B into 5. The last thing that you said was people in authority taking credit for work when the student struggles. Um, I kind of see this every every day in my struggles with school. Like I said before, I wasn't always good with school. Really struggled. Um, I I did have a couple of really hard teachers in my past, and those figures were getting awards for being such good teachers and being so great, and I just could not understand why they could not help me to move further and mature and help actually push me to do better in their class. Um, and I started to kind of figure out, well, hey, maybe it's not them, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to change something on my end. Um, so I kind of did that. I kind of started to push myself in a different direction, studying wise, and also not talking myself out of those relativistic answers, out of those things that I know, the way I think. Um, I started to find out how I think best and how I can focus that thinking and make it as simple as possible for me as a person. Um, and I believe all this just breaks down and goes back to my ethics and finding out who I am and finding out what I believe in and what I can do in order to um, put that assurance in myself that I can do these things um, by myself and not have to depend on someone else to be right there with me. Um, so I kind of went in a lot of different directions with this vlog, but I hope it was kind of what you all were looking for. Um, this is my video log 8, and I will see y'all next week.